The Google Chrome Incognito feature is still logging your browsing sessions right now, and the FTC can't stop it. Right now, if you opened an incognito tab today, Google received a signal, not a maybe, a confirmed telemetry handshake timestamp tied to a persistent identifier on your device sent to Google's servers before you typed a word. A federal court ruled that was illegal. Google paid $5 billion to settle, and the system is still running. Chrome launched incognito mode in 2008. The promise was clean: no browsing history, no saved cookies, no trace left on your device. Google marketed it as the private browsing experience, the dark screen, the padlock icon, the text that assured you your activity would not be saved to your account. For 15 years, that promise was why millions of people used Chrome for the searches they didn't want on record: medical symptoms, legal questions, financial trouble. The kind of searching you do when you believe no one is watching. Google built its entire user trust brand around that icon. What was happening behind it took a federal lawsuit to expose, and even then, only part of it came out. In 2020, a class action was filed in California federal court. The allegation: Google tracked users in incognito mode through its advertising network, Google Analytics, and web-embedded tools, even while those users believed they were not being tracked. Not accidental, deliberate. Google's tracking pixels, embedded across millions of third-party websites, fired regardless of browsing mode. The analytics tags pinged. The persistent identifiers synced. Your incognito session was being quietly threaded into a behavioral profile that Google's ad systems could read. Internal documents surfaced during discovery showed Google engineers knew. One internal communication cited in court filings described incognito users as people who were, and this is a direct quote, not in a private session from Google's data perspective. They knew. They left the padlock lit, and they kept collecting. In 2023, a federal judge refused to dismiss the case. She ruled that Google's own incognito disclaimer, the text on that dark screen, did not adequately inform users that Google itself would keep collecting data through third-party tools. The case moved toward trial. Google settled in December of that year for $5 billion. The FTC had been circling this space for years, issuing broad privacy guidance, flagging consent violations. But no agency ever forced a structural change to Chrome's telemetry architecture. The settlement required Google to delete billions of collected records. It required disclosure updates. What it did not require, what no court order, no federal agency, no consent decree required, was that Google change what happens the instant an incognito tab opens. Here is the part nobody reported. The $5 billion settlement addressed historical data. It said nothing about the architecture. Chrome operates with a telemetry layer that runs beneath the privacy interface, not inside it. Incognito mode disables your local browsing history. It does not disable the browser's persistent communication channel with Google's infrastructure. That channel runs a background process. It sends usage signals, crash diagnostics, and extension status checks back to Google on a continuous cycle, regardless of what mode you're in. Google frames this as a security function: malware detection, update verification, safe browsing status. And technically, that framing is legally defensible. It is also a loophole wide enough to route behavioral data through. Security telemetry sits in a different regulatory category than behavioral tracking. The FTC's framework doesn't reach it. The settlement terms didn't address it. Chrome's architecture separates these two functions just enough on paper to keep the persistent identifier handshake legal. And that handshake, the signal carrying your device token back to Google's servers, still fires every time you open an incognito tab. Google calls it infrastructure, and it's still running. What this means for you is specific. Every incognito session you open in Chrome sends a device-level signal to Google's network before any browsing occurs. That signal logs a timestamp. Over weeks, those timestamps form a pattern. Google may not know what you searched, but it knows when you used incognito, how frequently, from which device, from which IP range. Behavioral metadata. And behavioral metadata is frequently more valuable to advertisers than search content. They don't need to know you searched for a specific condition. They need to know you consistently use incognito on weekday evenings from a residential address. That behavioral signature is the product. The $5 billion settlement deleted old records and updated a disclaimer. It did not change what happens the moment you click that icon. So who decided the architecture was worth keeping? Not a rogue engineer, not an overlooked line of code. A sustained, reviewed, legally approved product decision, built through a $5 billion lawsuit and out the other side intact. The people designed to stop it settled for deleted records and updated disclosures. The mechanism survived. And if Google's own privacy mode was never actually private, the question no courtroom has yet answered is, what else in that browser is still running that you don't know about?